For years, Ellen DeGeneres was the face of daytime joy. But behind the scenes, a toxic empire was quietly rotting from the inside. Former employees called it emotional abuse. Celebrities began speaking out. And suddenly, America's sweetheart became its biggest hypocrite. At her peak, Ellen DeGeneres was more than a TV host. She was a symbol of kindness, acceptance, and resilience. The bubbly, dancing daytime queen who made millions feel safe and seen. Her signature phrase, "be kind," wasn't just a motto. It became a movement. But behind the smiles, the giveaways, and the viral celebrity interviews was a growing darkness, one that would eventually implode one of the most pristine reputations in modern entertainment. Before she became a cultural force, Ellen's path was anything but easy. She started out doing stand-up in New Orleans, with sharp observational humor and a disarming charm. She wasn't political, she wasn't edgy, she was safe, likable, and funny. The kind of comic you could introduce to your grandmother. But in 1997, she took a risk that changed television forever. Before we continue, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to Legacy Lost. In a now legendary moment on her sitcom Ellen, both she and her character came out as gay, a move that was revolutionary and dangerous at the time. This wasn't 2020's inclusion. This was 90's backlash. The media erupted. Sponsors pulled ads. Religious groups protested. ABC slapped a parental advisory on the show. And by 1998, Ellen was canceled. It could have ended there. Just another comedian with a footnote in LGBTQ+ history. But Ellen did something few could. She re-emerged not as a sitcom star, but as a talk show host. In 2003, The Ellen DeGeneres Show launched. Light, upbeat, celebrity-filled, and dripping with positivity. It wasn't just a show. It was healing, for her and for an America that was slowly warming to change. And the audience loved her for it. Ratings soared. The show won over 60 Emmys. She hosted the Oscars. She danced with Michelle Obama. She interviewed everyone from George Clooney to Britney Spears. And when she gave away trips and cars, it felt genuine, like your best friend had just won the lottery and wanted you to come along. But while America saw Ellen as a beacon of kindness, some people inside her empire saw something else entirely. Whispers started about cold shoulders, shouting matches, power trips, and a behind-the-scenes energy that felt far from kind. At first, it was just dismissed as celebrity stress, but the cracks were starting to show, and soon they'd become impossible to hide. As the Ellen DeGeneres Show hit its stride in the 2010s, it became more than just a talk show. It was a cultural fixture, a daytime juggernaut with endless A-listers, dance-offs, giveaways, and surprise feel-good moments. The brand, kindness, the reality, much messier. Whispers about Ellen's off-camera behavior started surfacing more frequently. Staffers and industry insiders began describing her as cold, dismissive, and disconnected from the very people she encouraged others to treat with compassion. One former employee claimed, "She talks about kindness, but that's not the experience working there. You walk on eggshells. It's a toxic environment." But at first, it was all rumors. Nothing stuck. In an industry full of egos and pressure, a difficult boss wasn't exactly breaking news. And besides, Ellen was untouchable. She had the audience, the brand, the image. People wanted to believe she was who she said she was. That changed in March 2020. As the world shut down during COVID, production of the show went remote. And instead of rallying around her team, many staffers claimed Ellen was nowhere to be found. Reports surfaced that her longtime crew received zero communication about their hours or pay, even as a third-party tech team was hired to handle the at-home shoots. Crew members who'd been with her for years were left in the dark, struggling financially, while Ellen filmed from her mansion. That same month, a former bodyguard told Fox News that Ellen was cold and demeaning when he worked with her at the 2014 Oscars. Then, Australian comedian Kevin T. Porter asked Twitter to share stories about Ellen being one of the meanest people alive, and thousands of replies poured in. Some were silly, others were disturbing. All of them hinted at a truth America hadn't wanted to face. The image was fake, but the real blow came a few months later. In July 2020, BuzzFeed News published a bombshell expose. The article featured dozens of former employees accusing the show's leadership of fostering a culture of fear, racism, and intimidation. Some claimed they were fired after taking medical leave. Others said they were subjected to microaggressions or made to feel disposable. The allegations weren't all about Ellen personally. Many pointed fingers at executive producers, but the public didn't care about that nuance. This was her name, her empire, her motto. Be kind. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Ellen issued an apology to staff, then a public statement, then a video to her audience. But the damage was done. What once felt like authenticity now read as PR cleanup. Viewers started to tune out. Sponsors paused. The aura of trust, the brand she'd spent 2 decades building, had been pierced. And once that trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to get back. After the BuzzFeed article detonated across the media landscape, Ellen's world started to unravel, not in an explosive, all-at-once scandal, but in a slow, grinding erosion of trust, loyalty, and ratings. The 2020 to 2021 season of The Ellen DeGeneres Show opened with a somber monologue. Ellen stood alone on stage, owning the rumors in her own way. "I've learned that things happen here that never should have happened," she said. "I take that very seriously. I want to say I am so sorry to the people who were affected." It was Ellen's first real attempt at damage control, and for a few days, it worked. Ratings got a slight bump from curiosity. Headlines buzzed. But the truth? The magic was gone. Audiences who once felt warmth and joy watching Ellen now viewed her through a different lens. One of suspicion, of hypocrisy, of betrayal, and that shift was irreversible. Ratings didn't just dip, they nosedived. In the 2020 to 2021 season, The Ellen Show lost over 1 million viewers, down nearly 44% from the previous year. For a show that had once reigned supreme in daytime, this wasn't a decline, it was a collapse. Behind the scenes, the fallout was even worse. Warner Media launched an internal investigation. Multiple executive producers were fired, including Ed Glavin and Kevin Lehman, 2 of the men accused of fostering the toxic work culture. Ellen tried to salvage the brand by claiming she had been unaware of what was happening underneath her. A tough sell for someone who had built her empire on connection and control. And in the wake of the firings, her own reputation never fully recovered. Sponsors became cautious. Celebrity guests became scarce. Viewers tuned out. The Queen of Nice label had shattered. And in its place was a question that hung in the air. Was Ellen ever really who she said she was? There were attempts at redemption. She tried to steer interviews into more raw, vulnerable territory. She leaned into self-deprecating jokes, but none of it felt like enough. The audience had moved on, and the narrative was no longer hers to control. In May 2021, Ellen announced what many had seen coming. The Ellen DeGeneres Show would end after its 19th season. She claimed the decision had been in the works for a while, that it was about creativity and needing a new challenge. But no one really bought it. The timing, the damage, the optics, it was clear this wasn't retirement. This was retreat. After nearly 2 decades on air, Ellen's departure marked the end of an era and the fall of one of the most meticulously crafted public personas in television history. When Ellen DeGeneres said goodbye to her audience in 2022, after 19 seasons, it was the end of one of the most successful talk shows in television history. Over 3,000 episodes, dozens of Emmys, billions of YouTube views, countless viral moments, and for nearly 2 decades, a nearly untouchable cultural image. But what lingers after the lights go out? In the months following the final episode, Ellen all but disappeared from public life. She wasn't on new shows, no major projects, no big rebrand. She'd gone from omnipresent to invisible, and the silence was deafening. Her departure marked more than just the end of The Ellen Show. It marked a shift in the way we talk about celebrity and how fast we're willing to flip from adoration to condemnation. Because Ellen didn't fall from grace because she got caught doing something illegal. She didn't get canceled for a single scandalous moment. She fell because the person she marketed herself to be wasn't who people behind the scenes believed she actually was. It's not uncommon for celebrities to carefully shape their image. In fact, it's expected. But Ellen's brand was different. Her entire empire was built on being kind, on being warm, approachable, safe. The friend you could trust, the one who helped people, gave away money, hugged crying guests, and danced her way into your living room. When that image cracked, when former employees, industry insiders, and even celebrity guests began painting a much colder, more transactional version of who she really was, it didn't just bruise her brand, it broke the illusion. And in the 2020s internet culture, once that illusion breaks, there's no going back. There were signs before the collapse. Dakota Johnson's now famous moment on the show, where she bluntly told Ellen, "That's not true, Ellen," when Ellen claimed she hadn't been invited to her party. That clip alone became a viral meme symbolizing Ellen's disingenuousness. YouTube compilations of her awkward moments with guests, Taylor Swift, Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, suddenly felt less playful and more uncomfortable. The collective internet mind rewound the tape and saw her differently. And that's Ellen's real legacy. Not the Emmys, not the ratings, but the cautionary tale. If your public persona is a brand of goodness and your private behavior doesn't match, eventually, the truth finds you. To be clear, Ellen did change the world. She broke barriers for LGBTQ+ representation. She helped normalize kindness as a value in mainstream media. She inspired millions of people, and probably still does. But the final chapter of her story isn't about progress. It's about perception. It's a reminder that legacy isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how closely your story aligns with the truth. And when that truth doesn't hold, even America's sweetheart can become its cautionary tale. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more amazing legacy lost stories.